What's up? It's Chris Friendly here. I think it's like my second, third video. Just checking out some records and stuff. Today I thought I wanted to get into some of the newer stuff that's coming out. This new kind of street punk, kind of charged street punk oi type stuff. But before I got to that, I really wanted to go back and touch on some stuff that came out in the 90s. You know, people always shit on like the 80s, but it's really, you know, punk rock came out, the whole 77 explosion. Then really in the 80s, you kind of had like the oi, UK 82, DB, all that stuff happening in England. And then in the US, you had the American hardcore scene, which, you know, the American skin scene, like New York, Boston and stuff, the American hardcore, that kind of had like its own little styles. You had these little pockets and everything, and in America it really went DIY with all these independent labels and stuff like Discord, SST, all over the place, and different styles came out of that. And then in the 90s, you really had, I think, it's really when those two things combined. You got like that real musicianship, that UK 82, oi kind of sound, and then you mix that in with that the DIY and the energy and the hardcore of the whole what was going on in the US. And that's when you really started to get this like 90s like street punk scene. And then that kind of carried on over until, you know, of course, the early 2000s. And then just recently, like I said, you had a lot of great bands that we'll get to in another video, the next video. Charged Records, which I'm about to get into now. They just came back just recently. They in fact, yeah, the Punks Unite, which if you get your hands on this, this had a ton of great bands from the 90s. Blue vinyl. You had Casualties, Craze, Double Cross, Violent Society, Endless Struggle, Debauchkas, Bomb Squadron, which was pre the virus, which I think I got to before. We'll get to them again. Lower Class Brats. A lot of bands that went on to Charged, and then a lot of bands that a couple of them went on to punkcore and stuff. You also had Pogo Attack, which is a little bit just a real DIY album. Came out, and I think the guys were from Jersey. I mean, you had Blanks, you had Wretched Ones, Dysfunctional Youth, which I don't think really appeared. I don't know if I think they did a split with the Earbleeds. Maybe another split, but I think this and maybe another comp or two. You had Distraught, The Pissed from Connecticut. Also, yeah, you know, Os Rotten, which is one of the best crust bands out of Pittsburgh. The Wretched Ones, which I'll get to in a minute. The Casualties, of course, which I'll get to more. Vomit Punks. That's a 7-inch. If anybody can get a hold of that, please get in touch with me. I'd love to get a copy of that. But I spoke about the Pissed appeared on that. These guys are great. Kind of like political, you know, street punk, hardcore street punk from Connecticut. They had this, a couple other releases, and they just did kind of a record release show for a new release. Hold on, I'll show you that real quick. That was a cool show in Philly at the First Utarian to celebrate their new album. It's available a couple places. I think you can still get it at Dismantled. But speaking of Pogo Attack, I wanted to mention this band, the Wretched Ones. These guys are just fucking killer, like, just street rock and roll. It's just the best way I can just describe it. Of course, it's punk. It's got that oi flavor to it. It's punk rock, but it's just fucking this is fucking working class street punk rock and roll. I mean, I think this album's got songs like I'm Just Doing My Job, That's Why I Drink Beer. On their this is Go to Work. On their self-titled, I believe we have the song Nothing Wrong, which is a great, funny song if you ever did any time in county jail. Anybody who's into hardcore music, Blood for Blood covered their track, Wretched One song, Going Down the Bar. I remember hearing a lot of guys from the hardcore that weren't familiar with the Wretched Ones, and everybody thought it was Going Down the Bar. It was an old country song, or this, nobody really knew who the Wretched Ones were. They had some really cool Wretched Ones. Unfortunately, I had a lot of their early 7-inches, but I lost them. But yeah, they have a ton of cool shit, ton of 7-inches. They were a little bit older back in like the 90s and stuff. They were a little bit older guys, kind of working class, a little bit older. So they didn't really play too much outside of the East Coast. So if you're, if you saw them, you were lucky. Now, a couple bands I wanted to touch on real early in the 90s, like some of the earliest bands that really were doing it in this kind of music. One of which, if you were familiar in like the Philadelphia area, Philly suburbs, Philadelphia, is Violent Society. Back in the day, with like the whole Philly shreds and stuff. This is a compilation of I think it's pretty much a lot of their singles and stuff. Violent Society kind of reminded me in a way of like Black Flag, in the way that Black Flag had a lot of those early 7-inches and stuff. Of course, Black Flag had like the Jealous Again and stuff, all that kind of shit. And speaking of Violent Society, this is like a classic. Violent Society, Boyles Split. Like if you were from like the Philadelphia area and you listened to punk, you went to the Kill Time, Starlog, you went to Zipperheads, you know what I mean? Like I remember Noise Pollution was right around the corner from the TLA. That was my old spot. These guys were fucking, this is just a killer split. Another classic one, East Coast Assholes. Split with Violent Society and Infant Mortality. Infant Mortality was a fun band from Delaware. I believe Violated Records just released, it's only on CD, but Violated Records just released their full length from years ago. I think both bands on this have like 4 songs each. Or no, Violent Society's only got 3. But the I Want You to Die, that was one of a lot of the old DIY Violent Society shirts back in the day. But yeah, Infant Mortality. This is funny. This is was released on like Punk Rock Records, and I think it was called like Dead Elvis, which is funny because like I was saying, like you had like the SST and the Discord and stuff in the 80s. And in the 90s, a lot of street punk bands, a lot of bands would just release it and just call the label anything. Just, Jedi Records, Dead Elvis Records. And this was re-released. I think this came out in 94. This came out again, was repressed in 98. And Schuylkill Records, like this Schuylkill River, in Philly, if you're not from this area. But I think it was funny because I think it was re-released in 98 because a lot of people were bitching that they couldn't get a hold of this. And here I am holding one 25 years later, or close to 30 years, well, over 30 years. Another band that was less known in my area were the Decepticons. Ray Mitchell, who was the guitar player, I think he also played bass, back and forth. But these guys went to the school I went to in high school. I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey, and then I moved over to Bucks County in high school. And Ray Mitchell was actually on like Jenny Jones or somebody, because he had charged up hair, Liberty spikes, and he went to technical school, and they were trying to kick him out of school, claiming that his hair was a distraction and that somebody could end up getting hurt. So his parents had a little bit of money, which they weren't expecting, and were able to kind of fight it, and it got in the news and everything. And they did a couple of 7 inches. I know some guys that went to school with him at Tech, and like were there when they were like printing these. And the other side, this is actually a test pressing of this. The other side is Tribe 13. Now these guys later changed the name to Antitrust, and they released, I think, 2 7 inches. It's fun, kind of charged hardcore street punk. The guys later went on to form Sons of Liberty, which more like Skin Oi type sound, real kind of like Revolutionary War influence, being from like Philadelphia, the whole Independence Hall, Liberty Bell type influence. The Three Percenter, which if you don't know, Three Percenter is a Revolutionary War reference. And Tribe 13, I think on one of the albums, there's a test press out there with a Philadelphia Flyers cover. I would love to get that, but there's probably only about 10 of them in existence. Oh, this was just The Suspects is a cool band, a little slower. They did a split with Violent Society, which was really good. Both sides of that split were good. These guys are from, like, I think, Virginia, Arlington, Virginia, outside of D.C. Now, that whole 90s, 2000, especially in the East Coast, Philadelphia, you have to mention The Virus. Now, this one was on Punk Core. I think it's 409 of 1,000. This is, they later released a CD, Singles and Rarities CD, which was, a lot of people was wondering about that, asked them why they did that so early in their career, and it's to collect this album and a couple other things. That album also had a couple of live things. If you saw them at Asbury Park in Holidays in the Sun Fest, which was, I think, 2001, I was at that. It was a fucking amazing 3 days. But on the 3rd, on Sunday night, Waddy from The Exploited joined them to cover I Believe in Anarchy, which was one of the highlights of the weekend. This album's got Looks Like Trouble, which is one of their one of my favorite tunes. A lot of people, that's a lot of people's favorite song, one of the highlights of their live performances. This is another album, came out right at the end of the 90s. Like, I believe this came out like 99. These guys are Clit 45 from Long Beach. More like real charged up street punk. And these guys are going to be playing the Hostel City Weekender in Upper Darby. I would like to do maybe a video about some of the bands playing that. That was a really cool thing. Like I said, Upper Darby, it's right outside of Philadelphia. These guys, Chain Whip, The Stitches, Down by Law, Moose Knuckle, Impact Driver, a lot more. Check it out. Hostel City Weekend. Look it up on Facebook, Instagram. Like I was saying, this is on Riot Squad Records. It says Riot Squad Records #1, and it's also hand numbered. It's always cool to get a hand numbered. Anything hand numbered. I wanted to show this. These are the Craze. A lot of those guys were real active in like the New York scene, and this is the Relics back when they were still just the Relics before they became the NY Relics. I believe this got a cover of Summer of '81 by the Violators, if I remember correctly. I remember saw the Craze with Antidote from Holland, not the New York City hardcore Antidote, which I have some records I'll show you. That was a crazy night because the show kept getting canceled. We drove to about 5 different venues in Philadelphia that night. I wanted to show this off. This is Street Rats. This came out like 2004 or 5. Dead End Kids. Real awesome, like 77 catchy hooks, punk and roll, punk rock and roll, whatever you want to call it. These guys are from Chicago. I believe this was a special release for Angry, Young, and Poor. It was originally on Charge Records, and they reprinted this this paper sleeve. I don't know how much you can see on the camera, but you know, you see it's hand numbered and everything. There was another one done like that. It looks just like it. The Subversives. I got this. This is all signed by the members. These guys are another great band from I believe they have an album out on Charge Records. This one was on Vulture Rock. I believe it says this was 12 out of 15, if I remember correctly. These guys, a lot of people call these guys like the American Oxymoron. Oxymoron, I got some of their records over here. They had a couple releases on Charged. One of the great 90s street punk bands from Germany. Kind of a little slower down, maybe, I guess you would call it. A little mid-tempo, UK 82 style. Like real amphetic, real sing-along. I want to show these guys off. I have, I busted out this album, first couple songs on this, Funeral Dress from Belgium. First couple tracks on this were produced by Charlie Harper from the UK Subs. But those guys also played the Holidays in the Sun. Here's this is my favorite. I'm in Love with Oi. The title track, I'm in Love with Oi, is great. A lot of other real sing-along, kind of pogo punk. More of that like 90s, early 2000s type stuff. But this was over what was going on over in Europe. That's another one. That was their first three. They later did like Party Political Bullshit. They did a cover of Down Under from I think what was that, Men Without Hats, or I don't know, one of those 80 songs. Another good European group, Antidote. Pure fucking charged up like street punk pogo. These guys were from Holland. I don't know, like, I was going to say Amsterdam, but I don't want to sound like, you know, that's the only city I know in Holland or something. But I heard these guys had something to do with like a squat over there. This is Go Pogo. This was originally, I think, on a 10-inch. This is their first, which was later re-released on Charged Records. I'll get to that later on. When Charged came back just recently, the last couple of years, this was one of the first albums they re-released. Oxymoron, like I was saying, I believe this is their second album. The Pack is Back. The first one is Fuck the 90's. Here's Our Noise. Real, like, kind of, like I said, amphetic, street punk, German, fucking great songs. Beware Poisonous, you know what I mean? Down the Drain. Weirdos. Global Threat. Bangor, Maine. The only thing I know from Bangor, Maine is Stephen King. This album, along with their first, I believe their first was What Will Change? Something like that, What Will Change? That was on Step One Records. This is on GMM. Well, this one, I believe, is on Jailhouse Records. The original was GMM. But these guys, their first couple albums were real hard to get. If you can find them on, like, Discogs, it's a couple $100. Oh, I wanted to mention the Street Rats record. If you want to grab a copy of this is real limited. Like I said, I think it's, let me take a look. Yeah, 77 copies. Death by Distro, I believe, has a copy of that available right now. And speaking of that, Death by Distro, I believe, is run by one of the guys in the Virus. And I wanted to mention those guys. Not very organized. But the guys in the Virus, they're from like, you know, at their time, you know, Philadelphia, Central PA and stuff. And those guys were involved in a lot of really cool shit, a lot of the underground stuff. Including, I believe it's Josh, the bass player. I believe he started Tattoo Punks, and I think he's still involved. It's a real cool collection of like Flash tattoo flash from tattoo artists around the world with like a punk rock flavor to it, punk rock theme stuff. I have all the books, but they're at my buddy's tattoo shop, Justin French at Ensville Tattoo in Marsville. I figured he could get more use out of them than me. But then you got Paul, the lead singer, who runs Full Circle Records in Harrisburg, I believe. And I think all those guys are involved in like tattoo shops, shit like that. Rotten Boys. I have to mention the Rotten Boys. Real charged street punk from Italy. I think northern Italy. This one Hated Youth Records, but it could have just as well have been on Charged Records. Back in the day, the really cool catalogs to have were Two Tone, which was a clothing shop up in northern New Jersey. And the other one was the, there was Angry Young and Poor later on. And then there was also the Punk Core catalog, which not only did their own releases, but other records. And I believe it was Fat Dave from The Virus who had an interview in that. And he mentioned a lot of the cool bands going on in America. I think he mentioned like the Lower Class Brats, a lot of the bands that I just showed here, Antidote, Funeral Dress. The Unseen. This is a collection, double LP, from Punkcore. This is a collection of all their singles. They had a lot of early singles out and stuff. Raise Your Finger, Raise Your Fist, Protect and Serve. Split with other Boston bands like Toxic Narcotic. I think this is their first album. The album I really love is So This Is Freedom. Are We Dead Yet? It's just one of my favorite all-time street punk anthems. I guess you would call it a secret track because it wasn't listed, of a cover of Michael Jackson's Beat It. I remember, I think in the album or thank you list or something, I remember the Casualties mentioning Defiance as being the only West Coast band. I'm not saying that. I'm not sure who said it, but somebody did. No Future, No Hope. It's one of those longer songs. I believe it goes in at 4 or 5 minutes. But it's got like kind of a slow build-up intro. But it's definitely a great tune. They just released some stuff recently, including this double LP singles collection on Punk and Vomit. Some more stuff that you could probably, I believe you can get at Dismantled. I wanted to give these guys a shout out. The Bouncing Souls, like, I kind of shit on them when I was younger in my teens during the 90s because they were a little bit more poppy and stuff, and like I was kind of resisting that more some of the West Coast stuff and everything. And not that these guys are East Coast, from not far from me and here in Jersey, but I remember hearing stories about like Epitaph guys coming over here asking, like, looking around to see what bands were hot, possible bands to sign, and a lot of people mentioned the Bouncing Souls. In fact, I think Randy Nell from Randy Nell's Man Cave, who ran City Gardens, I believe he said something like, yeah, check out the Bouncing Souls. But these guys definitely put their work in. I remember a real famous flyer with them opening up for Sick of All and Agnostic Front. This isn't in the greatest shape, but Blank 77, Up the System, classic 10-inch. Cool cover of Buddy Holly, Rave On. Cool vinyl, I guess that would be like turquoise. Awesome album art. I would love to get some tattoos of some of this old 90s punk artwork. Endless Struggle, Salt Lake City punks at charged street punk out of, like I said, Salt Lake City. They just had a recent release a few years ago, I believe. Spite Records, SPITE, on Instagram. Check him out. I believe he's got copies of their recent release, and I believe he might even have them on sale. Speaking of antidote, I just wanted to show this off. Prophets, People Not Prophets demo tapes, which was a release from a couple years ago. If you can find this, check it out. It's on Attack Records, which I never really heard of, a label over in Europe. Like I said, I mentioned Funeral Dress. This was a cool split 10-inch with Banner of Hope, which was a really cool East Coast female-fronted band. They had a singer named Jen for a while, which they recorded with. This one has Erica, who later went on to be the singer from the Relics when they became the New York Relics. So there's a whole, and there's a lot going on there with, like, JJ was the singer of the Relics, and then she left, and then Erica from Banner of Hope took over, and then JJ took over the Debauchkas, but the singer from the Debauchkas, they had an agreement that they couldn't play under that name anymore, so then they became the 90’s, but now the Debauchkas just released something, and I think it was like some of the other members weren't really a part of that release. It's crazy, you know what I mean? There's all these politics and shit. I mentioned the Virus, but I just wanted to show this off, their System Failure, because this is the European cover from Voltage Records. And I want to say that I was looking at their Global Crisis EP, and it's funny when you look in the thank yous sometimes, because like especially with these real DIY bands, these guys aren't millionaires and shit. These are real people. That's the thing about punk rock. You know what I mean? Punk rock, part of the reason why it started was what was going on in politics, socially, what was going on like in the neighborhoods these guys were coming from, what was going on musically, and it was a response to all that. And people didn't want to fucking listen to millionaires and shit anymore. They wanted to hear people, they wanted to hear like people from the streets, people, people like them. I don't want to hear fucking Fleetwood Mac, spending $1 million and taking 12 months high on cocaine and champagne making a fucking album. I don't give a fuck, if Led Zeppelin, degraded some fucking groupie. Wow, awesome guys, cool. And wow, you fucking you trashed the Hyatt House, and your lawyers and your record company paid for it. Did you go to jail? No. And if you did, like fucking you went to jail in Los Angeles, where the celebrities get their own fucking wing. You know what I mean? But like I was saying, the Virus. You know what I mean? They were talking about Jay Colitis from the Casualties. He was behind Charge Records, and he produced a lot of these albums, a lot of the Charge Records albums, and the Virus kind of thanked not just him, but Mom Colitis. So I guess she probably made some breakfast, made some dinner or something, which is awesome. And I just wanted to mention, the Casualties. Like, if you're going to talk about like 90s hardcore street punk, charged punk, whatever you want to call it, you can't ignore the Casualties. You got to give it to them. I mean, they have, they've been consistently putting out stuff. They stayed on the tour. A lot of people gave them shit when they went on Warped Tour and stuff. But sometimes a band's gotta like reach a little bit of a bigger audience just to let people know that we're still here. I mean, the Unseen played Warped Tour. They got shit for it. I remember the Cuffs opened up for Rancid in Philadelphia when Rancid was getting big and stuff. So, funny story, when Rancid, I remember being a kid, I was like 13 in City Gardens, and Rancid opened up for the Offspring right before Offspring hit it big. And Madonna was trying to poach Rancid from with Maverick Records was trying to poach him from Epitaph, and her security actually contacted City Gardens and wanted to show up and speak to him, and Madonna's security, I guess, weren't comfortable with with City Gardens security, which is probably a dude out back fucking standing at the door. I guess that wasn't good enough for Madonna, so I guess she just stayed home and did whatever, had sex with her money and her fucking dancers. I don't know what the fuck Madonna does. Another band I just wanted to mention, the Boyles, just because these guys were from Westchester, played Philadelphia a ton. Like I said, this is just a couple just some random records I wanted to go through, touch on the 90s. And next up, I'm going to try to get into some stuff that has been released recently. That's kind of going back to that sound. Not that it ever went away, but there definitely really was a fucking, I don't want to call it a heyday, but there really was an awesome time. Like those songs like 15 and 77 by like the Special Duties and stuff. And I could be, 15 and 77 was Antidote, I think. Special Duties also have, now I'm mixing things up. But no, what I'm talking about, wanting to go back in a time machine, like, a lot of punk rockers, if we had access to a time machine, instead of, seeing the Lincoln assassination, we'd be go checking out the Misfits, which, from what I hear, the Misfits didn't sound that great live back in the day, but hey, it would have still been nice to be there. It would have been great to go back and see Dee Dee and Johnny get into an argument at CBGB's and storm off stage. I got to experience a lot of great shit in the 90s in Philadelphia, a couple shows in New York, Jersey. But at the same time, I still wish I could go back because there were so many that I fucking missed. Even the Asbury Park weekend, where that's where I met my buddies Robbie from Seeing Snakes and Dim, who was the guitar player for Doc Rotten, who I mentioned earlier. We were the diehards, we called ourselves, because we stayed there the whole weekend, did not drive home, did not shower, did not get a hotel room. And even that weekend, there was bands that I missed that I wish I could go back and check out. But that's why, just take advantage while you can. Check out any of these records. If you guys got any suggestions, let me know. Give me some suggestions. I'll check something out. I'm always looking for new music, trying to spread it out. That's the only reason why I'm doing this. Just hear myself talk and maybe turn some bands on to some new people. Like I said, Doc Rotten, my buddies from Trenton, New Jersey, Dim. My good buddy Dim plays second guitar for him. High energy, punk oi, rock and roll. They added some trombones on a couple songs, some bagpipes. Real awesome, Trenton, New Jersey. All we got here in Trenton is Ernie Kovacs, City Gardens, Pork Roll, and that's about it. Crypt Keeper 5 and Doc Ryan. All right, guys. Till next time, keep it sleazy.